Welcome to Our College, Your Voices. I'm your host, Kara Monroe. In this week's episode, I'm excited to bring you some of the sounds from the Saturday evening class session of the Immersion Biology course, Biology 101, taught by Dr. Al Rubenstein and Dr. Joanna Greene, prior to the start of fall semester. As all of us were preparing for non-instructional week, Al and Joanna were leading a group of 15 students through the 3-credit-hour Biology 101 at Conner Prairie. Al and Joanna invited Dr. Ellspermann and I to visit their Immersion Biology class at Conner Prairie for their class dinner, their midweek dinner. Al's focus of the course, as he designed it and has iterated on over the last 10 years, and Joanna's as she joined him, are to give students an immersive, in-depth biology experience in the real world. They also intersperse a lot of focus on workforce development and the student life impact of biological interaction. You're going to hear about that from some of the students, and I hope you're as impassioned by the things that they talk about as I was. We're going to start here with a little bit of audio from Al about the course and how it came to be at Conner Prairie. So tell me a little bit about how the partnership to have this immersion biology class at Conner Prairie, how did that occur?
I think initially I was invited to come and present an opportunity to initiate a partnership by way of using immersion biology class. We have used immersion biology class for 10 years, but what we do is we take our students to Cumberland Falls, Kentucky, and there we basically have a captive audience, and we have them there for a week and a half of focused, directed Biology 101, focusing on all of the didactic material with a broader objective. And the broader objective are basically, what is the real outcome of this? Now, I have to admit, some of my biology professors have been somewhat critical of doing this. How can you cover 16 weeks of material in 11 days? And my answer is basically, what is the outcome supposed to be? You want to cover all the material? I covered the material far more extensively as far as width, not maybe as much depth. I want them to walk away with the major points that will affect their career development. I want them to work together from different areas of the globe, both with respect to experience, age, and everything else. Learn how to work together as a team. That's one of my major objectives. So it's a little bit different than what you have in a normal 16-week class. I say, look, I've given you the material. They get a stack of PowerPoints that covers everything, in addition to online didactic presentations that I have on YouTube. And this is their study guide. Yes, it's hard. They have to determine what's important, what is not. But that is part of the reality of life. No one is going to come in and say to you, here are the 4 important things you got to do for this project. You tell me what's important.
While Al has done this course for 10 years, this is the first time that he's been able to do it in the Indianapolis area. And that's allowed Joanna Greene from the Anderson campus to work with him on this course for this year. And so I'd like you to meet Joanna and then to hear from one of the staff at Conner Prairie, Zach, to hear just a little bit about the Conner Prairie environment and their partnership for this course. Can you talk a little bit about what Conner Prairie has been able to provide you and this partnership has provided you?
Well, in addition to the museum and the historical side of Conner Prairie, they have an extensive property here. I understand over 1,000 acres. Much of it is very natural, very untouched, terrain that's not being used and not available to the public, but they've opened that up to us to do natural studies. One of their interpreters is also a wildlife biologist. So she's been a wonderful resource leading us through some of the prairie land, the stream sides, the fields, and helping us understand a little bit more the history of the land and the life that, non-human life as well as the Native American peoples that lived here for hundreds of years. So we're getting a bigger picture, biologically of living things. the students, being right here on the property, have easy access to get out in the field and take samples and bring those samples back. We've got the microscopes right here. They can immediately start investigating, some of their questions as they study biology, the study of life.
So I'm here with Zach, who works for Conner Prairie. Zach, tell me a little bit more about your role with Conner Prairie.
So I've been at Conner Prairie for about 2 years, started in this position just the beginning of this year, but my title is Program Coordinator. I work with our programs team to make sure that all of our programs, special events, festivals happen from all the logistical standpoints. So whether it's hiring new staff or training or schlepping tables around, I just make sure it gets done.
Right. And so what's your role been in tangent to our Immersion Biology class that we've been offering here?
So I've been working with Dr. Rubenstein to just pretty much make sure that this is all facilitated, that everyone's taken care of. If they need anything from the Conner Prairie side, I do what I can to make sure it can happen.
Excellent. And
that's a wide range, everything from having lunch here on time, helping students set up tents that weren't sure how the poles fit together, to leading hikes, helping us get equipment for our classroom. Yeah, Zach's been the go-to man for all of these different projects we've been doing.
Now, I think of Conner Prairie as doing a lot of elementary, high school education. Do you have other colleges that use the facility, or are we a part of a select group?
So this is definitely part of the path that we are choosing to go forward with. We want people to start realizing that Conner Prairie isn't just a place for kids, that it's a place for adults to be educated. It's a place for adults to have fun. It's a place for adults to come well before they have children even. We have a variety of adult programming, and we want to, really foster education and meet our mission goals. And having groups like Ivy Tech come in to do something like this Immersion Biology class, it's the path forward. It's what we want to start doing and what we want to start seeing.
Excellent. For both of you, and this doesn't have to be related just to the Conner Prairie relationship, but what's been the biggest thing you've learned through this experience?
I think maybe we have ideas in mind, and Conner Prairie may have different ideas in mind, and just figuring out how to visualize that for each other and communicate has been maybe a new experience for both parties.
I think for me, it's basically that our entire grounds, which is I think around 1,000 acres, it can all work as a active classroom. So no matter where we go, whether it's on the river, whether it's in the North Woods, the South Woods, the prairie itself, or even out on grounds that we have developed, each and every spot has something to teach us. And there's a lot to learn out here. And if we have people like Ivy Tech here to teach others, then it's a great utilization of our grounds.
That's excellent. And what's the thing when you do this again next year? Oh, and the balloon is up in the air for Conner Prairie. I see it's one of only, Zach, help me. It's one of only 2 in the country that is that program.
So it's an enclosed helium balloon. I don't know all the facts on it. Our balloon staff, they know everything about it. But yeah, I know it's pretty specific and pretty unique to have that big of an enclosed helium balloon. It's definitely a trademark, and I don't think Fishers would quite be Fishers without it flying in the sky.
I agree. I sort of know its facts because the second one is at Disney World, which I'm a big Disney fan. So back to the question I was going to ask you. Being out in the field, other things happen, and you have to react to them as they do. Doing this again next year, what's the thing you're looking most forward to again next year if you're able to do this another time?
Adding a second course section.
Oh, very good.
We want to do this twice per summer if possible.
Very good.
Yeah, I think she has a great point, especially when it's immersive like this and we're outside. Different times of the year, we're going to have very different things to see, observe, to learn about. So whether it's the spring, summer, fall, or winter, this place is always rapidly changing, and each and every day is a unique experience. So expanding on that could really mean some really good things.
In addition to the dinner and the overnight campout, the students on the night that we visited were going to go on a night hike. And Joanna and one of the staff from Conner Prairie, Jill, who you'll also hear several of the students talk about, are going to talk just a little bit to you about this night hike and what it means to the students and what they're going to experience. So you'll hear first from Joanna and then from Jill.
We've been promised we're going to hear coyotes Coyotes calling. So something even myself, I've not heard yet before. So I'm excited about that.
Let me interject for a moment. We've been remember, the things we're doing here are based on things that we've done before. The night hike is important because it gives the students who are fearful of being out in the wild a way of neutralizing that fear. They're going to be walking around, they're going to be hearing things. They're going to walk through it, they're going to hear things, they're going to be spooked out. But at the end, it's like, what a challenge. I've been able to overcome my fear of bugs. And now I've been able to overcome my fear of the night. Now I've been able to somehow, understand that nature is something that you can embrace, that you don't have to fear. And that's important to have that experience.
So I'm here with Jill Whelan. And Jill, we actually heard about you. I don't know exactly what order we'll air things in, but the team, Al and Joanna, have said that you've done some of the hikes here. So tell us a little bit about you and your role here at Conner Prairie.
I've been at Conner Prairie for about 15 years. I started off as an interpreter, just very part-time. Then I was full-time. I was a manager. Now I'm back to being a part-time, very part-time. I'm semi-retired now. But I got called in on this project because they know that I love the outdoors. I have a background in wildlife biology, so it just seemed like a good thing to lead people around our beautiful grounds here and try to show them a little bit about how biology works out in the wild.
Excellent. So tell me a little bit about one or two of the tours that you're leading or are going to lead here with the class.
Well, tonight we're going to go out and take a night hike, which is always a lot of fun. Everything looks very different in the dark. And there's different creatures, of course, that come out at night. We have a lot of coyotes and deer. We've got raccoons, skunks, foxes. So hopefully we'll see some of those things tonight. And owls. There's a lot of owls in this area. So hopefully we'll probably hear those rather than see them.
Right. What is the thing you've learned as a result of working with the students here? Anything you've seen as a result of this?
Well, I've really enjoyed their enthusiasm, especially the people that are not that familiar with the outdoors, and that's a little bit scary to get out here and have bugs and things that you're not used to. I really appreciate their enthusiasm and their willingness to get out and do this, and I enjoy the students quite a bit.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like you're living a great life, being able to be semi-retired and pick your projects. So thank you so much for working with our students and serving on this project. I've interspersed some audio from both down by the campfire as well as up in the lab setup that Joanna and Al have made. And as we were talking in the lab before we went down to the campfire area, one of the students, Jeremy, walked in. Jeremy is a student at the IU School of Social Work and has took this class with Ivy Tech this summer, as well as an online finite math. And I want you to hear a bit from Jeremy now. You'll also hear from him in just a few minutes as we hear from some of the other students. But I thought his comments were really, really good for everybody to hear.
My name is Jeremy LaRue, and I'm a student at the IU School of Social Work right now, and I'm taking this course here at Ivy Tech. And I needed it, and this is a really good opportunity to take an entire course in this condensed allotment of time and really learn. I feel like I'm learning more in this class than I would have had I taken the biology course that I was signed up for at IUPUI for the fall semester, which would have been an online course. And, I think this demands your interest and attention. And if you can hold that for this long, 2-week period, I think you learn more this way. It's my experience so far.
As I mentioned, the students have been in the class for about a week as Dr. Elsberg and I dropped in on them for this evening activity. And as I looked over the schedule for the course and talked with Al about a good time for me to visit, I was just amazed at how much the students were going to have to absorb in such a short period of time. And so while we were talking with Jeremy, I just wanted to get his thoughts on the schedule. And then you'll hear a little bit from Al and Joanna on the schedule as well. You guys have had a crazy schedule so far. I read through it and just thought, you're taking a test at the morning of day 2. So Jeremy, I'm going to start with you. What has that schedule been like? You've been able to learn a lot, but has it felt too fast, not fast enough, just right? How's it felt?
I think it's been going smoothly, and I think the tests are fair. I know the first test, I think I did fairly well. I haven't seen the results, but I have a feeling I did fair on it. The second one, I didn't do as well as I typically do on exams. And just because it was that short period of time to study. But, I feel like I've absorbed more, though, during, like I said, in this short period of time than I would have in a typical semester of an hour and a half, maybe once or twice a week.
So to Al and Joanna, you're obviously in the field, so you're giving a different kind of feedback than you might be able to give in a traditional 16-week course where there's a lot more grading and returning and exchanging. But what's been the challenge and the benefits for you of the learning cycle for the students?
I think the challenge has been to, first of all, to engage with them, to get them to understand that they can do this kind of work, even though it's compressed in a short period of time. There's a way of getting this job done. And more so, I think the challenge has been to fall into a system that we've been working on for the last 10 years, at least I've been working on for the last 10 years, that if we follow at least the basic parts of it, it will fall in place, it will work. For example, one thing that normally evolves is that students start to connect with each other. Once they start to connect with each other, they form study groups. Once they form study groups, it's amazing how their grades actually come up. They feel real good about it, and they say to me, I never thought that study groups could be this beneficial. So when you have a captive audience like this, yes, they have to follow the rules. All students sign essentially a declaration that I will follow the basic principles, and if I cannot follow this, I will leave voluntarily, so they know what they're getting into.
Al has made reference to the fact that he selected these students, and I want you to hear a little bit more about that selection process. And I want to emphasize here that while a selection process for a course like this is not normal, we had no choice because there were almost 90 students who wanted to be in this course. There was a huge wait list for this course. And so Al worked with his local campus to design a selection process. And so I want you to hear a little bit about that, mostly because we want to share this episode primarily as a way to both inspire as well as to capture some of the knowledge that Al has gained over the last decade of doing an immersion course like this one.
All the students have been selected. In this case, I interviewed 30 students, an hour each. I picked 15 that I thought would fit best in terms of engagement, in terms of personality. Yes, it's my judgment, I have to admit, but that's the judgment that I make based on my experience. So this is a challenge that you do select the students, not necessarily a student. Some are students that I felt had struggled but had the potential, so I give them this opportunity. So we had almost 80, 90 students apply for this class. I interviewed 30, picked 15, and honestly, I think I picked the best 15.
As Joanna and I walked from the lab area down to the fire pit to start to talk to some of the students, I had a chance to talk with her about what her experiences were of this different teaching setting. And so I want you to hear those because I think it's really important just to hear the passion that comes through, but also some of the really unique things that you get to do when you're in this kind of a setting with students.
As I was thinking about overall how this has been, I mean, one of the biggest challenges has been things that are kind of beyond our control. Right. So there's a particular level of spontaneity that happens here and things that you can't necessarily plan for. But I think in a way that's a huge positive about this course, that it's really more realistic to life learning. Right. I mean, beyond the classroom, where everything's a controlled setting, students, as they leave our classroom, we want them to continue learning, and it's not going to happen in such an organized manner. Right. So it's really been enjoyable for me too. I think particularly with the students, I don't know the things that they're going to bring to me. Mm-hmm. So I get, and being in a casual setting like this, we have a lot more time for one-on-one interactions and discussions that have brought things to the table that, I can learn from them, and we can share things back and forth and try to figure out together.
Now you're going to hear from several of the students. Most of the students are going to introduce themselves. And I'm going to start with Cassidy, and then you're going to hear another student, and then you're going to hear Harvey. I'm also going to end with Harvey, and I'll be back after you hear from him to give just a little bit more personal commentary on this. As you listen to these students, you're going to hear, first of all, a lot of laughter. You can tell that in the week that they've been together, these students have bonded. You're also going to hear a little bit about fish and some electric shocks. I think between all the editing that we did to make this episode a reasonable length, we've cut out a lot of the description of that. So the students worked with the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, put on their waders, they went into the White River, and they did some collection and some examination of some different fish species. You'll also hear a little bit about Bree and her pictures. There were hundreds of them. I got the pleasure of sitting and thumbing through them on her phone while we were eating dinner together, and just a lot of the other sort of inside relationships that have developed with these students. In just the short week that they had already been together, you could tell that they had developed some really lasting friendships in just that short amount of time. So without further ado, here is our first student, Cassidy.
My name is Cassidy. I am the person that's scared of bugs, but I thought it was a great idea to take this class for some reason. But like, if I didn't, like, I've really learned a lot. Like, you know, we do lectures in the morning and then we come out and we actually like see what we just talked about. Like that actually puts a concept in an idea in my head of what, you know, we're learning. I don't camp. I don't get in rivers. That's dirty. Right. But like, these are experiences that like, they're great, and I just would have never gotten before. Right. I liked it.
So, before we go to our last student, how many of you have never tent camped until today? How many of you this is your first time? Excellent, very good. There are four hands in the air. Oh, I have two more. Oops. And how many of you had never been in waders before? Almost the whole room, I think. So. All right, which one of you is going first? Okay.
So I think one of my favorite experiences is like working together. So before a test or even at the end of the day, we sit together if we have a problem we can't figure out, or an issue or a vocab word we can't figure out. We actually sit down and just have a platform to ask questions. Sometimes they lead to different tangents, but at the end of the day, we still walk away at the end of the night understanding and applying it to what we learn. So I know I've talked to a couple students that we actually dream about what we learned the day before, and like we wake up knowing like whatever we learned. So it's one of those things where we can come to class, we know what we're doing, and learn some more. Even though we're dead tired at the end of the night, it's amazing that you can still retain so much information in 8 hours and actually come out strong at the end of it and know what you're actually doing.
I'm Harvey Shannon, and they've called me like the dad in the group. I don't know why. You know, and Dr. Rubenstein, I know when I first talked to him about this course, and I said, you know, as you can tell, I'm a little long in tooth. He said, but not as long as my tooth. So he said, you'll be fine. But I'll have to say that, even at my age, eukarya and prokarya. So we went through that part of the course and understanding that topic. And that night, I had an email come to me from Yahoo, you know how you get news, and it was about prokarya and eukarya. And I was telling my wife, I would not have understood this. And it was saying, like, we think we found the beginning of man. And it was talking through that. And I said, I wouldn't have understood this if it wasn't for Dr. Rubenstein. So for me, this was, my favorite part of it is being able to apply that, right, to my knowledge.
I'm Elena. This is only like semester 3 for me. But I definitely think my favorite thing from the whole Conner Prairie thing is Miss Greene and Mr. Rubenstein bickering. They're both really great instructors, and I love working with them. And Conner Prairie, I'm really grateful for this.
When I leave class and I come home, I have tons of things to tell my fiance, and they're usually quotes from Dr. Rubenstein that are... He is very entertaining, and I get a lot of great information, and I learned so much from the things he says, but he's funny too, and that's really important because there's nothing worse than a lecturer that's just dry, and this guy is not. This guy is really good. And also Ms. Greene and Jill have been great, great conversations with everybody and the classmates, everybody, we all get along really well. Conner Prairie is beautiful. And then last, the experiential element of it, I find to be, I've never had a college course like this ever. And this is one I won't forget for sure. And I feel like I'm going to learn more in this 2 weeks than I would have if I would have took a full semester, online course, whatever.
So I'm Mimi, and
This way. Okay, there we go.
the favorite part of this course for me so far is that I grew up homeschooled, and I went to public school for a few years on and off, but I really appreciate how this mirrors my homeschool experience, that we go out and it's hands-on, that we can ask questions. And I think my favorite experience so far is when we went on the nature hike. I think it was our second or third day, and we saw a tumor in a tree, and there was a hole in it, and Dr. Rubenstein sees it, and he's like, you know what, I bet there are wasps in here. I have this stick, we should go poke it. And so most of the group is standing back, and I'm just kind of curious, because I don't think that there are wasps in this dead tree, but I want to see if he pokes it, if anything comes out. So I get a little closer. And then at that vantage point by that other tree, I see another furrow in the ground. And Dr. Rubenstein has his walking stick, and I looked at him and I said, well, the tumor was a bust, but there's a hole under there and something else could live in there. So you got a stick, let's go. And we walked over and we poked it. Nothing fun came out, but it was just, it was a really great experience to have the instructor come down onto my level and just, say, yeah, let's be inquisitive. Let's go poke something with a stick and just see what happens. It was a unique experience and definitely one of my favorite.
My name's Tori. One of my favorite things has been Dr. Rubenstein. With a lot of his quotes, one of my favorite being, never miss an opportunity to take an opportunity. And as much as that isn't necessarily related to this class, just hearing some of his stories about what he's done, it really helps you kind of learn from him in other ways. And it's really good, just an impact in general. And then also on top of that, I have to call out Bree for all of her pictures. If you look through any of her pictures, 95% of them are Bree making a great pose behind whatever background Harvey's trying to take a picture of. You always have to appreciate that.
I don't feel like I emphasized enough, when I was talking about my learning for, about the eukarya and prokarya. And as I hear them talking, the reason that was significant for me is because I'm a slow learner. And you think, we've been doing this for 6 days, and I go home and my wife is like this because, I'm telling her what I've learned for the day, for the day and how much I know now and everything, and she's holding her head. And the reason why this setup, this class, for me is so significant, because what he has pounded, he said, you learn from each other, talk to each other. I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you everything you need, but you got to talk together. And so I sit, between, two very, very good, intelligent and folks. And the one she was talking about, dreaming about it, it was like me. I woke up with the models in my head, and I was telling her, and it's, it's because of the, I think the delivery of the class, and I think that the way this class is set up, it actually promotes learning, which I've been taking, Ivy Tech classes for a number of years, and I can safely say that I've never learned so much in such a short period of time. It's scary for me, for my age, it's scary for me, and I tell them it's scary for me because I feel like but he offers the comfort level that, hey, as long as you talk to everyone else, you kind of share and try to absorb it and go home and study. He pounds that in us as well. He says you'll do fine. So I just felt, that I need to say that.
As I mentioned before we started with the student comments, I ended with Harvey for a very specific reason. We have talked a lot at Ivy Tech in the last 18 months about whether or not a shortened time frame, and specifically 8 weeks, can work. Al and Joanna have carefully redesigned this Biology 101 course to fit into 2 weeks. It doesn't look the same as a class that they'd offer on campus in 16 weeks. It has benefits, it has drawbacks. I loved how Harvey talked about his learning in this course, and for a student who, by his own admission, struggles in courses, to know that he got so much out of that course in a 2-week time frame was just really important for me to hear at that point. It's easy to get bogged down in all the day-to-day of all of the transformational work we're doing at Ivy Tech. It was just great to hear, and I hope that you enjoyed it too and you took something away from it as well. I try not to editorialize too much on these episodes, but that was just a really important moment for me. The other thing that I'll just take a little more privilege with here is that I really got from the students how much they valued the relationships that they built over the week with both Al and Joanna, as well as Jill and Zach from Conner Prairie. They were laughing with them, joking with them, talking about them and to them, and you could just tell a lot of relationship. And it reminded me of some of the work that we did at the Online Instructional Strategies Conference this past summer about making yourself human and real to your students. And I think what I was reminded of that night with those students is it's just as important in an in-person class as it is in an online class. If you remember Mimi's comments earlier in the episode about how a professor would come down to her level and would engage in her questions as a student, I think it's easy for us as faculty to forget about that importance, and for staff to forget about the importance of seeing something through the eyes of a student, seeing it for the first time and understanding that reality. So thanks for indulging my little editorial comment here. But I hope that this episode has inspired you and given you something to think about. This is one of my favorite episodes that I've done. It's a great thing when I get to meet new people like Jill and Zach from Conner Prairie, and to meet our students and see them having a great time learning, and to work with our faculty. So this was a great episode for me. Thanks to all of the students, as well as Zach and Jill from Conner Prairie, and to Al and Joanna. We always end every episode with a call to action. For this week, go visit Conner Prairie if you haven't been there in a while. It is a truly fun place to go. They have tons of events and tons of activities. So please take a few minutes just to browse their website at least, and to take a look at whether it might not be a good place for you to visit. And of course, remember that our course outlines at Ivy Tech offer a lot of flexibility. Just as Al discussed, these students gain all the competencies of Biology 101 in this new format. It's just very carefully redesigned to fit in this 2-week structure. But we have many other faculty who do incredibly creative things with our general studies and liberal arts courses, like contextualized English and creative writing courses that allow students to self-publish. So think about your course and try to look at it from a new lens. I hope that we can feature more of these kinds of courses in the future. So if you have a course like this one, or some other really creative adaptation of an existing liberal arts course, please reach out to me. I would love to feature you here on the podcast. Thanks again for tuning in for this episode. I'm your host, Kara Monroe. You can connect with me on Twitter at KNMTweets. Our producer is Ann Penny Valentine. Ann is on Twitter at IndyPenny. You can reach us by email at ourcollegeyourvoices@ivytech.edu. Don't forget, you can also leave us a voicemail at 317-572-5049. If you are an Ivy Tech faculty or staff member, you can join our listener community in Microsoft Teams. Just open up Teams on your computer, go over to the Teams button on the left, look down at the bottom to click on Join a Team or Group, and then click on the Our College Your Voices member community. Our website is ivytech.edu/podcast. Production assistance for this and every episode are provided by Becky Campbell, Sarah DeWitt, and the Ivy Tech Community College marketing team, and our podcast concept is by Matthew Pittman. Theme music, recording, and post-production services provided by Jen Eads at the Brassy Broadcasting Company. I recorded a lot of audio for this episode, so Jen really had her work cut out for her pulling all of this together. Jen, thank you for always making us sound great. We will see you next time on Our College, Your Voices.